Here on the channel, we've talked about countries that never existed, unknown countries, and countries that used to exist. Today, I thought we'd take a look at new countries that might exist soon, with the possibility of being created in the coming years/decades. Now, to be clear, I'm not supporting the independence of these regions specifically, so don't get mad at me in the comments. I'm just listing out the regions in which there are strong independence movements, or regional governments who seek independence. So let's get started. First, Catalonia, with its capital of Barcelona and being located in the northeast of Spain. Catalonia has been wanting independence for a while. It's one of the country's richest provinces, so they probably think they can do very well without Spain, and have been seeking independence, both through popular movements and even through the regional government itself. There was a referendum in 2014, but it was deemed illegal and not valid. Of the people who voted, 80% wanted independence. In 2017, they tried again, and pretty much the same thing happened with the referendum being invalid. We need to take into account that Spain is made up of several autonomous regions, many of which were their own kingdoms up to medieval times. Catalonia used to be part of the Kingdom of Aragon, so their desire for independence might come from that historical separation. The issue for Spain is that granting Catalonia independence could trigger a domino effect and effectively dissolve the country into a lot of smaller states. There are independence movements in other communities, like Galicia, the Basque Country, or Andalusia, although in smaller dimensions than Catalonia's. Next, Kurdistan. This one has the bad luck of being located in one of the world's most unstable regions of our time, the Middle East. They have fought and argued for a separate state for the people of Kurdish ethnicity for a while, but until now they haven't been able to get it. The maximum claim of their territory spreads from part of Turkey to Syria, Iraq, and Iran. Those who want the formation of a sovereign state claim that these regions are of Kurdish majority and therefore should be able to rule themselves. Others are a bit more moderate and simply want more autonomy within the current national limits of states in the regions, and some progress has been made in this aspect. In Iraq, the Iraqi Kurdistan has been granted the status of autonomous region. They held a referendum in September of 2017 and 92% of the voters wanted independence, but Iraq rejected the vote. There was also a small kingdom of Kurdistan inside Iraq on the border with Persia at the time, but it only lasted from 1922 to 1924 and was always unrecognized, so their fight for independence continues. Now we travel to Africa, for East and West Libya. After the revolution in Libya a few years back, the country has dived into a lot of instability. From what I could understand, there's basically a lot of different entities and governments trying to be in control and rule the country, and they don't exactly get along. Other than the many self-proclaimed governments which don't seem to have gathered much support, at least so far, there are two main areas of control. One is the internationally recognized and UN-backed government in Tripoli, which is the West, and then some regions which favor General Haftar's government in the East, based on the city of Tobruk. The conflict between these two main factions could result in an actual split of the country, creating two new sovereign states. Now we go to everyone's favorite place, the Balkans. When Yugoslavia split, we got Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia, Macedonia, and Montenegro. There's also Kosovo, which, as we know, causes a lot of discussion regarding its independence or autonomy. But guess what? There's another separation issue that everyone can argue over. Now, this is a little confusing, but inside Bosnia-Herzegovina, there are two main regions. The Federation of Bosnia-Herzegovina, which has a big Croat population, and Republika Srpska, which I can't pronounce. It's called the Serb Republic, or RS for short, not to be confused with the actual nation of Serbia, which is right next door. The RS has a big Serb majority, and so for a while, they've been wanting independence from Bosnia. Local authorities have tried to hold a referendum, but the Bosnian central government refuses it, because obviously they don't want to lose a big chunk of their country. Moving to one of my favorite places, Scotland. The Scottish people had their say in 2014, and by a somewhat narrow margin, they preferred remaining in the UK instead of being independent. But since 2014 until now, a lot has happened, especially all the issues with Brexit. A lot of people argue that one of the main reasons that led Scottish people to want to remain in the UK was that they wanted to remain in the EU. If they had left, their admission at the time into the Union might have been blocked by the UK itself or by other countries which want to disencourage independence movements within their own countries, like Spain. This is evident in the fact that when the UK voted for Brexit, almost all of Scotland, if not all, voted against it, wanting to remain in the EU. In fact, ever since this happened, the Scottish government has insisted and even taken steps so that a new referendum for Scotland takes place and the Scottish people get to have their say on independence once more. The effects of Brexit might lead to a lot of issues with the unity of the UK, but that's a topic for another video. Back to Africa, Somaliland. This region already considers itself as independent, and it actually has unofficial diplomatic relations with a few countries. But the government is only recognized as de facto internationally. It's located on the northwest of Somalia, a region that's also ridden with instability and issues in general. This has led to the area of Somaliland to effectively separate itself from Somalia. They have their own government, currency, and army. Somalia as a whole is kind of a mess right now. There's Somaliland, which is pretty much independent, then there's Somalia itself, then there's areas controlled by Ethiopia in support of Somalia, and then we have areas ruled directly by the African Union, while certain local militias take control of other regions. It seems as if the self-proclamation of independence of Somaliland has gone okay, and they've been able to function well as a nation on their own within the limitations of the region. All that's left is to settle their dispute with Somalia and have international recognition. The next one is in Russia. Technically, Kaliningrad. This is that little piece of Russian land that we always see in maps in the middle of Europe and wonder why Russia has this exclave between Poland and Lithuania. Kaliningrad is part of the Russian Federation because after 1945, the northern half of the former East Prussia was annexed to the USSR. After 1991, Kaliningrad stayed Russian because it was not a republic within the Union, so it couldn't ask for independence. It was a part of the Russian Republic, and it was mostly populated by Russians already, and apparently no one else wanted it, either because of the trouble of incorporating a foreign territory or because they didn't want to anger the Russians. So even today, the odds of it becoming independent are, I would say, very, very small. Some people state it should be given back to Germany, but Germany doesn't want it, and the Baltic countries plus Poland probably still don't want to anger Russia or deal with the issues of incorporating a large region in their countries. Ever since 2004, with the enlargement of the EU, the region has become further isolated from their own country, so logic would dictate that some type of solution would be found, but I don't think we'll see a change in this anytime soon. In Asia, Korea. Now, I know what you're thinking, Korea already exists, and yeah, but I mean a united Korea. We've been hearing about North and South Korea a lot lately, and not for the best reasons. For a big part of its history, Korea was a single kingdom. Only after World War II and during the Cold War did its division take place, between the North, influenced by the USSR, and the South influenced by the US. However, even though the Korean War was never officially ended, and only an armistice was signed, not a peace treaty, there is somewhat of a process of reunification going on. On the 15th of June of 2000, there took place the North-South Joint Declaration. The first point of the declaration is the South and the North have agreed to resolve the question of reunification independently and through the joint efforts of the Korean people, who are the masters of the country, singular. This was reinforced in 2018 with the Panmunjom Declaration for Peace, Prosperity, and Reunification of the Korean Peninsula. The first steps would most likely be the full verified denuclearization of the peninsula, being followed with the de-escalation of military tensions, a formal end to the war, and more cooperation between the two countries at social and economic levels, leading to a possible unification. But of course, for this to happen, the oppressive regime of the North would have to open itself and come to an end, something that seems unlikely, at least for now. And finally, Western Sahara. This is a disputed territory that is claimed by locals and also by Morocco. Up to this day, its status is somewhat undetermined. There were conflicts between the two sides, and since 1991, the UN has been able to enforce a ceasefire, but they also don't recognize a winner and sovereign of the area. At an international level, some countries agree it belongs to Morocco, others treat it as a separate country. Negotiations are still going on, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. Hopefully they'll resolve it peacefully. So those were a few regions in the world that might become independent in the future, forming new countries or reinstating historical ones throughout the world. A lot of these were already mentioned in previous videos because, like I said, a lot of them have history as independent kingdoms or nations throughout history in the past. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. As always, leave a comment below with your opinions, corrections, or suggestions. If you liked the video and want to catch future ones, remember to subscribe, and I will see you next time.